You speak, and the air doesn't change, the room doesn't ripple, no one leans in. You might as well be wallpaper. And yet, deep inside you, there's a pulse, a whisper that says, I am meant to be heard. But you've been taught to mute it. The system raised you to be forgettable. It praised your silence, rewarded your obedience. So now you wonder why no one listens, when all you've done is follow the script they gave you. But today, we rip the page, burn the book, rewire the signal, because I'm not here to motivate you, I'm here to activate you. There is a method, ancient, modern, and viral, that can flip perception like a switch, a method that turns you from background noise into the frequency they can't escape. The moment you install it, people stop scrolling, they stop talking, they lock on, their eyes widen, their breath changes. They don't even know why, but something in their gut whispers, pay attention to this one. And that's when you start winning. They won't say it to your face, but you feel it. In the way they talk over you, nod past you, scroll while you speak. You offer value, and they act like it's static. You try to be approachable, and they read it as weak. You try to be kind, and they forget you exist. Every message you send into the world echoes back with silence, or worse, dismissal, and you start to rot from the inside. That sharp hunger for acknowledgement turns into something darker, resentment, shame, self-doubt dressed up as humility. You smile through it because that's what they told you to do. But late at night, your mind replays every moment they overlooked you. Every time they chose someone louder, colder, emptier. And you think, what's wrong with me? Here's the answer. Nothing. You're not broken. You've just been running a signal that screams, ignore me. And you didn't even know you were doing it. But that ends here. Today, we break the loop. Because pain, when properly used, is not just a wound. It's a weapon. And it's time to sharpen yours. They told you presence was about being nice, about working hard, about being reliable, supportive, a team player. They sold you a belief system engineered for invisibility, a set of behaviors optimized to make other people comfortable while slowly erasing you. But let's burn that lie to ash. Attention is not a gift, it's a resource, a form of social currency. And you've been broke because you were too polite to take it. The truth is brutal. Humans don't reward goodness, they reward gravity. We are wired biologically to look for the loudest drumbeat in the dark, the clearest voice in chaos, the one who claims the room, not the one who waits for it. You don't rise by waiting. You rise by framing. Framing yourself as the source of insight, authority, danger, or desire. And until you do, you'll stay muted in a world that's already shouting. You were trained to be small. Not because it's right, but because small people are easier to manage. But now you see the rigged game. And once you see it, you don't unsee it. Now the only question is, do you still want to play by their rules, or do you want to write your own? Let me tell you a story that most history books flinch from. In the sweltering jungle heat of Jonestown, 1978, over 900 people died, not by force, but by faith. A man named Jim Jones spoke with such slow, calculated intensity that his words felt like prophecy. He didn't start with power, he built it, by screaming, not by proving, but by becoming the signal. He whispered what they feared most, and then told them he was the only one who could protect them from it. Now listen carefully, I'm not glorifying the man, I'm showing you the pattern, because every cult leader, every master manipulator, every elite level persuader uses the same blueprint. They don't chase attention, they become gravity. They anchor their voice into the amygdala, the primal brain, and once they're inside, logic becomes irrelevant. And don't think this is just the stuff of cults or crime thrillers. The same pattern is used on Wall Street, in Silicon Valley boardrooms, in YouTube thumbnails, in TikTok influencers who accidentally go viral. It's not about truth, it's about frame control. And the most dangerous part, it works every time. So ask yourself, do you want to keep playing honest in a rigged casino? Or do you want to learn how to count cards? Because what Jim Jones did with fear, what Steve Jobs did with vision, what your favorite creators do with attention, you can do with your message. But only if you stop playing small, only if you step into that primal architecture and claim it. This is not a gimmick. This is architecture for perception. The Signal Protocol isn't a trick. It's a system for transforming the way people see you, feel you, follow you. It works on friends, clients, bosses, audiences, everyone. If you've ever watched someone command a room with just a glance, or stop a scroll with a single sentence, this is the blueprint, because those people, they're not lucky. They're running a signal you've never been taught to decode. Until now. It begins with S, shift the frame. Let me tell you something terrifying. Every conversation you've ever had a hidden power dynamic, and you probably weren't in control of it. You may think you've been speaking freely, contributing, being polite, but underneath that politeness, you've been surrendering authority, invisibly, without realizing it. Every time you defer, every time you wait for permission to speak, every time you smile too quickly, nod too often, agree too fast, you're reinforcing one brutal reality. You're not the frame, and the person who controls the frame controls reality. The frame is the lens through which others perceive your value, your status, your truth. If someone else sets that lens, you could be a genius, and they'll still see you as background noise. So the very first step in the Signal Protocol is simple but brutal. You must break their frame before it breaks you. You do not enter conversations passively. You interrupt patterns. You disturb comfort. You become asymmetrical. Predictability is your enemy. Familiarity is your executioner. When you begin speaking, they should feel something twist in their gut, something primal, instinctual, like, this is not normal energy. You hijack the moment. You don't say hello. You say something that fractures the room. A truth too sharp, a silence too deep, a sentence too strange. Frame shifting begins with disruption. You never introduce yourself as excited to be here. That's begging. That's weakness. You open like a virus, fast, destabilizing, unforgettable. Say something that makes their eyes lock onto you. Say something that makes their brain freeze. Most people in this room are going to forget everything I say, but a few of you are going to feel your entire life start to glitch. That's a shift. That's a new lens. You've told them who they are before they could define you. That's power. Now control the tempo. Slower equals higher status. Every cult leader knows this. Every interrogator, every YouTube retention hacker whispering confessions into their mic. When you speak slowly, the listener's brain adjusts to you. Their breathing slows, their cortisol drops, their eyes dilate. Why? Because evolution has taught us this. Only the apex moves without urgency. Only the alpha takes up time like it's oxygen. Only the leader defines the rhythm of the room. The moment you slow down, you force others to fill in the gaps with anticipation. Their minds lean in, their skin prickles, their nervous system betrays them, and now you own the tempo. You own the frame. This is not about being loud, it's about being unignorable. If someone challenges your frame, don't defend, redefine. You don't argue inside their lens. You say, that's the wrong question, and pivot the entire room. You're not here to win debates. You're here to reshape belief. The frame isn't always verbal either. Your body, your eye contact, your posture, all frame signals. When you move less, when you blink slower, when you make people wait for your response, You become the source, the oracle, the signal they can't look away from. Let others react. Let them fidget. You stay composed, cold, deliberate. That stillness becomes threat. It becomes allure. The mystery makes them addicted. And the final layer of frame control? Unpredictability. Say what no one else dares. Ask what no one else thinks to ask. Interrupt common sense. What if you're not being ignored because you're boring, but because you're too real? Now their minds spiraling. Now they're open. Now they're yours. This is how you shift the frame. Not with words, with presence, with silence, with danger, with unapologetic asymmetry. Most people walk into a room hoping to be accepted. You walk in knowing the room will never be the same. That's not charisma, that's architecture. That's the first law of signal. And once you shift the frame, everything else begins to bend. Then comes I. Inject emotional contrast. If shifting the frame is how you pierce the veil, emotional contrast is how you make them bleed memory. Because let me tell you something that 99% of content creators, speakers, leaders, and influencers still don't understand. We don't remember information. We remember tension, not facts, not tips. Emotion, the swing, the shift, the shadow that falls between the highs and the lows. That is what tattoos itself to the brain. That is what gets replayed. So if you speak in a straight line, calm, safe, nice, you disappear. You're just another raindrop in the flood. But when you create contrast, when your tone dances between fury and serenity, between revelation and confession, you become unforgettable. You don't just talk, you haunt. Think about a horror movie. The quiet is never quiet. The silence is the setup. The sudden scream, that's not the scare. It's the contrast that kills. The stillness, then the surge. That's what hooks the nervous system. Your audience is no different. They crave emotional contrast like a drug, not because they like it, but because their brain can't ignore it. This is how cult leaders speak, how interrogators break you down, how the best YouTubers hold your stare across 15 minutes that feel like 5. They shift energy constantly, whisper, pause, then snap with intensity, pull you in, let you exhale, then drop the next bomb. Your system gets trained to stay locked in, not out of interest, but out of survival. When you inject emotional contrast, your audience can't scroll away. They're too deep inside the pendulum swing. They're chasing equilibrium, and you never give it to them. You speak with sudden warmth, then bite with cold truth. You confess your weakness, then expose their lie. You show vulnerability, then flex godlike certainty. That split, that fracture between tones, is where the addiction forms. Because we are not linear beings, we are biochemical chaos wrapped in flesh. We don't bond with consistency, we bond with volatility that feels safe. That's what emotional contrast gives them, the illusion of danger with the reality of control. You lead them through the storm but always make it out first. That's how trust becomes obsession. Use pacing like a weapon. You slow way down, let their heartbeat sink, then you spike. One sentence, one word. Suddenly fast, fierce. Let their system jerk awake. That jolt, that's the dopamine release, the chemical bookmark. Now you can drop a message, a pitch, an identity reframe, and it will stick like a thorn in the softest part of their brain. And don't make the mistake of thinking this is all sound and fury. The contrast must be earned. It has to feel like you are riding the emotion too, authentic but amplified, performative but primal. You don't need to act, you need to feel louder. Use real rage, real sadness, real joy, but push them to the surface like they're barely contained. That's what grips them, that's what bypasses their logic and speaks to the animal underneath. Great manipulators aren't consistent, they're calculated. They create rhythm, then break it. They build momentum, then choke it. They take the room to the edge, then hold it there. in exquisite discomfort. And everyone keeps listening, not because they want to, but because they physically can't stop. And you don't just contrast your tone, you contrast your ideas, juxtapose light and dark, hope and doom. Say, you want to be seen, but you're terrified of being known. Say, you crave attention, but you've trained everyone to ignore you. When your message contradicts itself on the surface but aligns in the gut, the mind locks up. That cognitive tension, it's the key to deep retention. They'll replay the moment again and again, just trying to make it make sense. Congratulations, you've become unresolved, and nothing is more unforgettable than an unresolved frequency. That's emotional contrast. You're not just delivering content, you're inducing chemical imbalance. They will feel you, then fear you, then follow you. Because contrast doesn't just hook attention, it creates devotion. Now you drop into G, gravity tone. Let's begin with a truth you've always felt, but never had the language to articulate. People don't follow the loudest voice, they follow the heaviest one. And weight isn't volume, it isn't decibels, it's not how much noise you make, it's the density of your presence, the mass behind your words, the gravity you exert just by being there. When you speak with gravity, your voice doesn't rise, it pulls, it doesn't float, it drags. And people, they orbit it, silently, unwillingly, inevitably. That's the gravity tone. It is ancient, primordial. Every mystic, prophet, cult leader, high-functioning manipulator, they all used it. You don't speak to inform, you speak to alter the weather inside their minds. And your voice becomes the climate. Start with your breath. Gravity tone begins below the throat. Deep in the diaphragm, you slow it, control it, harness it. Most people talk like they're rushing to finish before they're interrupted, but when you use gravity tone, you speak like interruption is impossible. Each word falls measured, intimate, final. You don't raise your voice to command, you lower it to compel, because here's what the nervous system knows without ever learning it consciously. The predator never needs to shout. The priest doesn't need to scream. The one in control doesn't beg. And when your voice reflects that certainty, people submit voluntarily. They confuse that slow confidence with truth, with knowing. And in their minds, your voice becomes the voice inside. Speak slower than they expect. Let your words stretch. Linger. If it feels a little too long, you're almost there. Because silence between sentences is not empty, it's sacred. It creates tension, and tension is where transformation happens. Gravity tone means you're never rushed, never frantic, never trying to hold attention because you already own it. The less you chase their focus, the more they crave your approval. That's how addiction forms. That's how cults begin. Not in noise, in stillness. Lower your pitch. Drop it just 1 or 2 notes. Not to sound robotic, but to sound anchored. Subconsciously, lower tones are associated with leadership, competence, sexual dominance, and emotional authority. The deeper you speak, the more your words bypass the conscious brain and sink into the limbic system. There, in the silent places behind reason, loyalty begins. And it's not just pitch, it's texture. Speak like you're telling a secret wrapped in shadow. Let the edge of your voice carry a touch of danger, like something unsaid lives inside the silence. Because it's not what you say that holds them. It's the feeling your voice creates in the empty space after. Vary your tone, but never become chaotic. Your job is not to scream or perform. Your job is to carry so much presence in your words that every syllable feels chosen. That is the algorithm's secret. It doesn't care what you say, it only cares that you make people feel something they didn't choose to feel. Your voice does that. Use strategic pauses, make them wait, make them ache for the next sound. You're not a speaker anymore. You're a metronome for their nervous system. Set the beat, set the mood, set the rules. And when you do speak, every word should sound like the final answer. No room for doubt. Speak like scripture, like prophecy, like a blade that cuts clean through disbelief. You're not conversing, you're installing programming. You are no longer someone they listen to, you're someone they obey. But never say that out loud. The power only works if it feels like theirs. Now take it deeper. Gravity tone isn't a gimmick, it's the ultimate influence virus. The longer you speak in it, the more they drift out of resistance. Their guard lowers, their thoughts blur, their pupils dilate, their breath syncs with yours. And their subconscious submits. Speak like you've been awake for 1,000 years. Speak like you already know how this ends. Speak like your words aren't just sound, but structure. You are no longer just a person. You are now the gravity well in the center of their attention. And once they've been pulled in, they don't escape. Not because they can't, but because they don't want to. Next, you move into N. Name their need. Here's the most terrifying truth most people will never admit. We are all walking around starving to be seen and terrified of being known. And when you name their need, you drag that hidden wound into the light, gently, with reverence, but with a knife behind your back. This step isn't about providing answers. It's about exposing questions they never said out loud. You don't sell a product. You don't even share a message. You say the thing they thought only they felt, and you say it like you've been watching them for years. You wonder if people ignore you because deep down you're not worth remembering. You try to stay quiet, hoping it'll hurt less than being invisible. You overthink every text, every silence, every pause, because maybe this time they finally saw through you. There it is. Their pulse spikes, their skin chills, their brain short-circuits, because somehow you know. And when you speak like this, when you name their need, you do more than describe their pain. You validate it. You give it dignity. And when you do, they stop seeing you as content and start seeing you as salvation. This is the tactic of interrogators, the weapon of cult leaders. The edge every successful dark narrator, prophet, or digital hypnotist uses behind the curtain, because we are not loyal to people who impress us. We are loyal to those who understand the ache we never voiced. To name their need, you have to listen, not to what they say, but to what they're trying to avoid. Watch their patterns. Listen to the silences between their words. Observe the questions that come with hesitation, with shame. That's the access point. Then go there first. Before they even know they need permission, you offer it. You've been waiting for someone to just see you without you having to earn it. That single sentence, it can undo decades of emotional armor. Because here's the secret. Everyone thinks they're the only one, the only overthinker, the only rejected one, the only outcast, the only faker pretending to have it together. So when you say the quiet part loud, they break. And in that break, they bond. Once you've named it, hold it. Stay there. Let them feel the echo. Don't rush to fix it. Don't skip to a solution. Sit with the wound. Create space for them to finally feel something real in a world addicted to masks and microdoses of dopamine. That's when their psyche does the unthinkable. It links you to healing. You didn't give them pleasure. You gave them permission. Permission to hurt, to be, to stop pretending. And once someone sees you as the only person who understands, they follow, they defend, they evangelize. You can reinforce this by using coded language, subtle identity tags. You're not like most people. You've always been the one watching from the edge. You felt older than your age before you could explain why. These phrases act like psychological keys. They make people feel chosen, handpicked, seen. And the best part? It doesn't matter how many people you say it to. If it's crafted right, each one will feel like the only one. That's the hypnotic paradox of naming the universal need in a personal tone. Mass intimacy. This is the same neural wiring that makes confession stick in religious ceremonies. That locks viewers inside ASMR horror monologues late at night. That makes someone cry while watching a video they can't explain to anyone else. Because when you name their need, you're not giving them content, you're pulling them into ritual. You don't just describe the pain, you anoint it. And in that moment, you stop being a creator or a coach. You become the first person who ever really saw them, and they will never forget the moment they heard their secret life spoken out loud by you. But don't stop there. Use a anchor identity. This is where the transformation becomes irreversible, because once you've shifted their frame, injected emotional contrast, spoken in gravity tone, and named their deep, invisible need, there's one final step before their loyalty fuses permanently. You give them a new name. You anchor identity. Human beings will die to protect a belief, but they will kill to protect a self-concept. When you give someone a new way of seeing themselves, when you anchor that identity with language, story, ritual, and belonging, they will fight to preserve it. Not because of you, but because they've attached it to who they are now. So here's the dark, divine power you now wield. You get to say who they are, and when you do, they stop seeing your voice as external and start hearing it as their own internal monologue. This is what cults do. This is what militaries do. This is what elite brands, addictive platforms, toxic relationships, and transcendent art all do. They say, you are this now. And if it resonates, they become it. You do it with precision. You're not someone who gets ignored. You're someone who's been training in silence. You don't crave validation. You crave recognition. There's a difference. You're not weak. You've just been surrounded by noise that never deserved your signal. Every one of these sentences performs identity surgery, a reframe, a reinstallation. You're not convincing them of anything. You're revealing who they already were, but never had the language or power to articulate. And that feeling like a veil being lifted, that's the conversion moment. They will watch the entire video just to feel that again. They'll join the comment cult. They'll DM you strange confessions at 2 a.m. They'll defend your name in arguments they don't understand because you anchored them to a self that feels stronger, truer, more dangerous. But identity alone isn't enough. It must be mirrored socially. That's where tribe comes in. You must create a we, not just you're this, but we are this. You say, in this space, we speak differently. We see what others are blind to. We don't chase attention. We command focus. We don't beg. We broadcast. That collective identity creates internal pressure to act in alignment with the group. This is known in psychology as identity fusion, and it's one of the strongest known forces in human behavior. To deepen the anchor, use ritual language, repeat powerful phrases, make them mantras. Silence is signal. Gravitas over gimmicks. We don't rise to be seen, we sink into presence. These aren't just words, they're mental architecture. Repeated enough, they form the spine of the new self. If you want algorithmic mastery, this is also the moment YouTube's retention curve spikes. Because people don't leave when they're watching content. They leave when they don't feel like it's about them. So when you give them an identity, especially one they want but never had words for, they glue themselves to you. They don't see your video anymore. They see themselves. An identity must be exclusive. The more sacred the label, the more sacred the gate. Not everyone gets it, not everyone understands. But you do, you're part of us. The rest can keep scrolling. They won't make it. That's how cults work. That's how elite fandoms work. That's how movements begin. You're not giving advice. You're initiating identities. You're not creating viewers. You're birthing avatars. When you anchor identity, you become more than the voice they hear. You become the mirror they didn't know they needed. And now, they're no longer watching you. They're watching themselves evolve in real time. And once that's felt, they'll never leave. And now, the final blade, L, loop the scar. This is where your voice stops being a moment and becomes a mechanism. Because attention is not won once. It must be secured, reinforced, ritualized into habit. You don't want them to watch. You want them to need to watch, to crave the next hit, to think in your voice when they're alone. That's the function of locking the loop. The algorithm doesn't reward views. It rewards completion. And people don't finish things that feel complete. They finish things that feel unfinished but essential. So here's the paradox you must weaponize. Resolution loses retention. Tension sustains it. To lock the loop is to become an open question in their nervous system. You do this through embedded recursion. Your words loop back on themselves. Your phrases become riddles. Each idea opens another door. Every sentence gestures toward a deeper layer, one that only the next video reveals. It's not watch this. It's if you stop now, you'll miss the answer your subconscious is already begging for. Think of it like this. Dopamine is released not in reward, but in anticipation of reward. That means uncertainty is chemically addictive. So build that uncertainty into your structure. Every idea should whisper, there's something under this. Don't stop now. You're not done yet. Make them feel like they're in the middle of a revelation, not the end. You can do this structurally. End stories on near cliffhangers. Ask questions you almost answer. Start loops early in the video you only close 15 seconds from the end. Or never close them at all, but point to a video that does. This turns your content into an ecosystem. They binge not for pleasure, but for closure. And you make sure that closure never fully comes. This is how cult doctrine is passed. Through layers, through secrets just out of reach, through the promise that the next lesson is the real one. You also lock the loop with language. Use phrases that repeat with subtle variation, callbacks, signals, incantations. You train the brain to hear certain words and anticipate something sacred or dangerous. And when you don't deliver immediately, they lean in. Their nervous system tags your content as unfinished business. Use strategic silence, not just for dramatic tension, but to reset their mental rhythm. Each pause interrupts their internal dialogue. That gives your next sentence more weight. And when that next sentence opens a loop. But the real reason people ignore you isn't what you think. They're hooked again. Loop relocked. Use emotional pattern breaks. Take them from reverence to rage, from soft to sharp, from confession to revelation. Every emotional turn becomes a hinge, and every hinge needs a door on the other side. That door, the next idea, the next hook, the next video, the next version of themselves they haven't yet met. And here's the final secret. You're not locking them into a loop with you. You're locking them into a loop with themselves. You show them a version of who they could be, stronger, sharper, undeniable, and then you withhold it. Just enough, just long enough, so they have to keep coming back to get closer to that image. This is identity reinforcement by pursuit. And if you've anchored that identity right, they'll never stop chasing it. This is how cults retain members, how toxic relationships keep partners, how binge content fuels entire empires, not by delivering value, but by delivering just enough to keep them craving the rest. You want them to leave the video haunted. It should echo when they close the app. It should whisper while they brush their teeth. It should interrupt their thoughts during silence. Your voice becomes the loop, their craving, their question, their unanswered prayer. And that's how you never lose them. You don't just create retention. You become the ritual. They say no one wants to be first into the fire, but no one wants to be last into the light either. This is where we make them feel like the final one to awaken. And that delay, that shame, that gnawing sense of missing something sacred, that's how we pull them in faster than anything else. Social proof isn't just about showing numbers, it's about creating the illusion of inevitability, that this movement, this message, this identity has already consumed thousands of others, and they're the only one still standing outside the gates, not because they aren't worthy, but because they haven't seen clearly until now. You start subtly. A comment flashed on screen, a quiet testimonial whispered mid-sentence. Thousands of people just like you, we'd already made the shift. No need to elaborate. The vagueness is intentional because uncertainty makes people project themselves into the tribe. They fill in the details, they write their own backstory. And that illusion, it's stronger than fact. Then you use echo language. This isn't just a video, this is part of something bigger. People are changing their lives right now, and you're catching the signal just in time. This idea isn't new, it's just finally reached you. And now they feel late, not rejected, delayed. And delay causes discomfort. Discomfort leads to obsession. Because they don't just want to understand, they want to catch up. Social proof isn't about flaunting popularity, it's about implying that belonging is already happening. Somewhere out there, people are applying this, changing their tone, getting noticed, and they're not. That gap burns. And the only way to soothe it is to step in. Now deepen the spell. Use ritual behavior as proof. People are commenting signal received when it hits. They know. Suddenly the comments become sacred space. Lurkers scroll, see 400 comments with the same phrase, and something triggers, I want to be part of that. So they join. Not because you told them to, but because they need to prove they belong. Leverage scarcity of belonging. This message doesn't reach everyone. That's how we know it's real. Translation? If you're watching this, you were chosen. You didn't click this video, it called you, and you finally answered. Social proof here isn't just testimonials, it's spiritual surveillance, the idea that others like them saw this and changed, that you've been reading DM after DM, people saying, I started speaking with gravity tone, they don't ignore me anymore. Day one of shifting identity, people started leaning in. Never thought I'd be seen like this, but they looked, they listened. And now, your viewer feels like they've been standing outside a door everyone else already walked through. They hate that feeling, so they step in, fast, hard, and with total devotion. This is the same mechanism that builds mega churches, that keeps high-ticket masterminds full, that gets people to pay $10,000 to walk on coals or scream into the forest, because everyone else already did. And let's not forget the algorithm. It loves content that looks like community. Comments exploding, shares spreading, pinned testimonials. It reads that momentum and boosts you. So this part is not just for the human mind, it's for the machine overlord too. Proof triggers trust. Trust triggers reach. Reach triggers more proof. And suddenly your message is everywhere. And the viewer? They now think to themselves, if I leave this video now, I'll be the one who missed the shift. And missing it would be unforgivable. That's social proof, not a flex, a threat, wrapped in invitation. If you're tired of being ignored, stop asking for permission to be seen. It's time to stop whispering and start signaling. Comment, signal below, and I'll send you the deeper framework. But only if you're ready to be heard. Next video. The 3 toxic habits that are silencing your power and how to replace them with influence triggers. You're not boring, you're just misaligned with your own gravity. Subscribe now and let's rebuild your signal. They'll never ignore you again.